Hello, hello. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. Let's see here. Today, we're going to be doing show 176, believe it or not. So today is Wednesday, June 30th. It's a little bit after 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am going to, as I always do, I'm going to check in on Facebook and make sure we're streaming there. We are also now streaming live on LinkedIn. So if you are connected with me personally on LinkedIn, you will, you know what? That's pretty cool. I just got the, here, I'll show it to you. I just got the alert on LinkedIn that we're streaming. So that means technology is behaving. So let me jump over here to Facebook, make sure that I see it. Yes, I see that we are live. This is good. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't be shy. Drop a comment down into the comment section. Say hello, and maybe tell me where you're coming to us from. And we're going to have a fun conversation today. I've known this fella for many years. He originally was a customer of ours here at One Firefly. And he's had a really fascinating career, and now he's in a position where he's helping many of you grow your businesses. And so I'm here with Matt Bernath. He's a senior coach at VITAL Management. And I know many of you have heard of VITAL Management. You know, Paul and Steve over at VITAL Management will be talking about Matt's joining the team and his goals. And we're also going to talk about maybe some of the confusion between VITAL Management and Bravis and kind of the differences there. So we're going to jump into all sorts of fun stuff. But without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in Matt. And let's see how he's doing. Matt, how are you, sir?
Good, Ron. How are you doing? Hey, everybody.
I am good, Matt. For our audience, where are you coming to us from?
From sunny Southern California. I'm actually in a place called Anaheim Hills, which is about 15, 20 minutes away from Disneyland.
That sounds lovely. I think I had seen something on social media, though. Are you guys in a drought? Has it not rained, or is that a different part of California?
So, no, I mean, we have not had much water. I feel like we're in perpetual drought, being, shamed for watering our lawn and things of that nature, which, it sounds like I'm insensitive to it, but I'm certainly sensitive to the fact that we need water to make things grow and work around here. But yeah, California is a desert, right? Even as you get close to the coast, it's, we live in desert conditions. So yeah, it'll easily be up in the hundreds this summertime, and there,
I had no idea it got into the hundreds in Orange County.
Yeah, where I am, I'm a little bit. I'm about 30 minutes away from the beach, and so when you get up into we're kind of in the first set of foothills. We're actually in the hills that burn quite frequently here in California. Ooh. So about every 3 or 4 years, the hills behind us burn. But yeah, the drought makes that a little bit scary as we head into summertime, and every few years, we basically have to just watch out.
Best wishes that this is a light season for those conditions.
Thank you.
I've seen that stuff on TV, and it looks terrifying.
Yep. We've been through it once, but fingers crossed that'll be the last time. We'll see.
A couple of quick hellos. We have Hashish coming to us from India. So Ashish, thank you for joining. And we have Angel coming to us from Mexico. So Angel, thanks for dropping a note in there and saying hello. Appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Matt, your businesses, maybe let's quickly identify what and it's more than one. So what are the businesses that you're affiliated with?
Yeah. So I have been a coach with VITAL Management since 2019 when I connected with Paul and Steve. Prior to that, I was a client of theirs. And so, I spend a good part of my time coaching other business leaders inside of the industry. I also have some private clients outside of the industry. myself. So I really discovered how fulfilling the client-facing coaching work is. So I really enjoy that. In 2016, I helped a friend of mine get a security company off the ground. And so that's Caliber Security, and I'm involved there. I don't do a lot of the day-to-day operational work, but I'm more involved in finance and strategy and overall direction of the company.
Got it. I appreciate that. And let's go back in time. I've got lots and lots of questions for you about our industry and how you guys over there at Vital are helping our industry. But I always find it fascinating to learn how you actually landed. What's your origin story? What's your background? How'd you land here?
Yeah, it's funny. I'll try to be as brief as I can, but essentially it's 25 years now, which I just added that up in my head today. It seems unreasonable, but 25 years that I've been in the consumer electronics business. I actually started my senior year of high school with a retailer that many of us probably remember, Circuit City. And I spent a lot of years in retail, about 5 years. And then I played the wholesale game. So I was a rep for JVC and Pioneer and AudioVox and a bunch of different brands for a number of years. I took a short 1 year stint out of the industry to actually sell Yellow Page ads. I wanted to go get some real hardcore sales training. That was back when we used to get the 3-inch thick yellow pages, the yellow book. So
would you call people and would they hang up on you, or was that an easy sale?
No, it was hard. It was hardcore, man. I mean, especially, I won't go into the stories, but it's everything that you could imagine about hardcore transactional sales. So what that did is it helped me to realize that I am not a transactional salesperson. I am a consultative salesperson through and through. I wouldn't say that sales is my, sort of top priority in terms of what I want to do every single day. But it being such a critical part of my entire life, I figured out through that experience that I am not a transactional guy. So it was great. It was fantastic. And during that Yellow Page time, I realized I missed the industry. And so that's actually when I made the decision to start my AV company, Surreal Systems. And what was interesting is I'd never, other than hooking up a few stereos in people's houses, I'd never run a wire in a home or did any of that stuff. So when I started my company, I actually started it with a Yellow Page ad and did it, part-time for a while. And I'm sure this sounds familiar to a lot of you. And then when it got big enough, I sort of came home to my wife. We were a young family at the time, and I said, hey, I think I can make this work, and I really enjoy it. And I had found somebody to help me do the work itself, and it was one large job that I sold that allowed me to take a week off from the Yellow Pages, go do this project, and it essentially put 3 months worth of overhead into my pocket, right? So I came home at the end of that week and I said, hey, I'm quitting the Yellow Pages. I've got 3 months worth of bills in my pocket. If I can't sell the next job and the next job and the next job, I'll go and work for somebody. And, kind of the rest is history, as they say. So, I was able to sell the next job and the next job and the next job. And, in hindsight, that was probably the worst business plan ever. Right? Was like, hey, let's see if this money in my pocket can keep me going until I sell something else. And it wasn't until about 4 years into running my company that I realized I needed help. And so I started hiring on coaches about 4 years into owning my business because I had a ton of chaos. I was overstressed. How
many hours a week were you working in those first 4 years?
It was probably easier to count the amount of hours that I wasn't working, right? So it was like, right. I probably slept for 6 and then I maybe saw my family for 2. So it was like, maybe 8 to 10 hours a day that I wasn't working. The bills were scattered on the kitchen table. And I mean, it was everything you hear about, about running your own business, right? And so I just didn't want to live that nightmare forever. And that's when I kind of started to reach out to, to people to help, and eventually discovered Paul and Steve. Well, actually, Paul wasn't around. So, it was Steve by himself at the time doing his fast forward coaching gig, and, hired on with them. And that completely helped me turn the company around from a sort of lifestyle hobby business into a real profit-making machine that had enterprise value, had a reliable, comfortable stream of profit, and I became I was a happier person at that point in time. Spending more time doing the things I wanted to do, and in 2018, I decided it was time for me to move on, and I ended up selling Surreal Systems in 2018. And ultimately, that decision was made around really some personal stuff going on in my life, and finding less and less passion for that business specifically, and just said, hey, you know what? I think that there was time for a change. And ultimately, when I sold the company, I really didn't know what I was going to do next, which again was in hindsight both the best and worst moves I could have made. Right. I was a member of Vistage at the time, which is a CEO peer group. We meet every month, and I had just sold my company, and I was still showing up to the meetings like, hey guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but let's figure this thing out. And one of the fellow members of the group had a traffic control company. And so they set up these cone zones, right? And they'd grown 40% year over year. They'd been around for 15 years, but they were not making any money. So every month that, this owner the CEO would come in and just complain, hey, I've got 40 people working for me. I just don't know how to make money. And, long story short, I said, hey, let me come hang out with you for a couple of days. Let's see, just as a friend, what I can do. And that turned into a long-term paid coaching engagement. So I ended up being the interim CEO for this company for about 15 months, and we were able to turn it around. The CEO was of retirement age, so she wanted to sell. We ended up turning it around, 7x the profit over 15 months, and she sold to a large public company and was able to exit early last year. That experience alone helped me to realize the coaching thing was the most fulfilling work that I'd ever done. And that's why, during that process, I engaged with Paul and Steve, and they say, hey, we need a coach. So come on board. And, that's where in 2019, I started training, and I've had coaching clients with VITAL ever since.
How would you describe VITAL management? What is VITAL management?
So VITAL management is both people and process. So the people, being Paul, Steve, and myself, if you count them up, it's well over 100 years of experience, right? And varied experience. Paul brings on the manufacturer's perspective. He's incredibly intelligent in so many ways, and marketing and sales and brand. Steve brings the financial aspect of it, being able to count money, truly understand the accounting piece, the bookkeeping, the dashboards, and then I bring the dealer's perspective, right? So I know and understand the entire process. So the people, the three of us, is a part of it, but also the process that Steve has created over the last 15 years on how to organize a CI business so that you reduce the chaos, you increase the profit, but also you take things that used to not be measurable, and then now you can measure them and put them onto a dashboard, which is the BI for CI dashboard. And just like driving in your car, you can get immediate feedback on what's happening in your business and some leading indicators, which is sort of unheard of in the CI industry, to have these leading indicators that show you what's likely to happen down the road.
You mentioned when you sold your business, and this is a term that came up when you helped your friend just, back in 18 or 19 sell their business. You mentioned enterprise value of a business. So I'm going to ask you, what is enterprise value, and what is the enterprise value of an integration firm?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I don't know how Webster defines enterprise value, but
sorry, we don't have to be Webster perfect, but we'll be Matt perfect. How's that?
Yeah. So our definition of enterprise value is building something that's an asset, right? And so that asset could be something that's physical, like inventory, of course, is a physical asset. A building is a physical asset, or enterprise value in the way of a repeatable profit stream. That's one bit of enterprise value, and then also cash building, right? Building cash in the business. So we have plenty of CI dealers on our system who have lots of cash, and that cash can be kept in the business, spent on capital, human capital, physical capital, investing in the mission and purpose of the company, or it can be taken out of the company and create assets for the owner. And ultimately, the most simple definition of enterprise value for us is what is sellable, right? What are the assets of that business? Whether or not you decide to exit and actually sell it, or potentially have someone run the company and you achieve a reliable stream of income from there.
You, Steve, and Paul have worked with a large diversity of businesses across our industry. What percent, and so everyone's listening here, I'm sure they're going to maybe pique their ears with this answer that you're going to potentially provide here. How profitable, and I'm talking net profit, real profit, not cash flow. And we could even, maybe you could help clarify the difference between profit and cash flow. How profitable are typical integration firms?
Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, Ron, most of them have no idea. And I probably would say that whatever number I give you is not going to be accurate, because nobody counts the same unless they're on our system. But what we've experienced, because we've done a number of analyses, both on clients and potential clients, when we put a dealer's numbers into a sort of measurable, benchmarkable system, we often see the low single digits in profit. So, 5 to 7% is, I would say, on the high side of what we often see. But our dealers who have been on our system and who are following the processes, they're in the 15, 20, 25% net profit. So we know for a fact, because we've seen it over and over again, that dealers are leaving a lot of profit on the table, right? And so we're able to make that change for them. So
let's maybe go there first. Where are some of the obvious places people are leaving profit on the table? And then I would love, I'm gonna say this now because I want you to remind me to ask it if I forget it. What actually is required for people to get into the quote platform so that numbers can be compared? Like, so I want our audience to know that as well. How much work? Is that a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? Those are two quick thoughts I had.
Yeah, good questions. So, there's a number of small things that add up to big things, right? So inevitably, everybody wants the silver bullet. They want the blue pill or the purple pill or the green pill, right? We all want that. We all want our problems to be solved by one simple thing. We've really identified about 6 areas of the business, and a number. We've identified about 60 different things that we can do in about 6 different areas of the business that individually, when those things are done and put into place on a regular basis, we can achieve a much higher profit and, of course, success and reduce chaos. So we see it in the revenue side of the business, of course, right? So that's top line revenue. And we define revenue as work that's been completed, not jobs that have been sold, right? And so
those are liabilities, right? If you've collected a deposit, right, and you have cash in the bank, that's not actually your money.
No, that's the customer's money that you're holding on to. And of course, the really smart integrators are putting that money into an interest-bearing account so that they can eke out a little bit more profit. But you got to be really good.
There aren't many of those out there, though. Let me just, I put some money in a money market account. I want to say they're giving us like 0.2% or something.
Yeah, and you got to have a good money manager at that point to make that work. But it's certainly better than nothing. But on the revenue side, we've identified probably 10 or 15 things that our dealers can do, from having the right mix, meaning the percentage of equipment, percentage of parts, percentage of labor, breakdown. We often find that dealers are just not collecting enough in the labor side of their business, and yet that's the most variable portion of the profit component. Most of them know what a widget is going to cost, or a speaker, or a black box. And so that's a fairly reliable calculation, but that represents only, a small part of the profit of the company that's being lost in the back end. Gross margin is the other area that we've identified a number of strategies. Of course, gross margin gets eaten away by your fixed expenses in the business. And so we have to first start out with a strong gross margin if we expect to have any kind of net margin. And again, that's an area of the industry that we see a lot of dealers just leaving money on the table. Cash. So cash management, meaning collections, making sure that we're collecting on time. A lot of dealers are actually very good at staying ahead of the cash requirements of their business, but how they recognize cash versus revenue is a topic that you just brought up a little earlier, and is an area of opportunity for many dealers. Again, we have 10 or 15 strategies in that area. Productivity is a big piece in the industry. How productive is my labor force? Of course, the more productive they are, the less variable your gross margin on labor becomes, right? And so if we can increase productivity in your business, again, we have 10, maybe probably 20 different things that we can do in that area. We increase productivity, we immediately experience significant gross margin increase on the labor side. Compensation. So we have some compensation strategies to help keep that in line. That is the single largest expense that our dealers have that is eating away at their gross margin. So aside from buying the equipment, compensating our people is the largest expense. And lastly, the sixth area that we've identified opportunities is major operating costs. So these are your fixed expenses, right? These are what most people would call overhead. And we have strategies on how to rein that in, but also we know what the benchmarks are for each of these 6 categories. So once we're able to look at a dealer's numbers in our system, we can tell them where they are on the benchmarks of these 6 key areas and help them to make changes in those areas.
I'm going to relate what magic you guys are doing at Vital Management to what I wished existed. And maybe it does exist and I haven't found it yet, but in the marketing space, Taylor and Taylor's our VP of operations and finance at One Firefly. And he and I and our leadership team, we're trying to build a marketing company that is niche industry specific. Everyone listening knows that. But at the same time that we could compare ourselves to other marketing agencies out there in the world. The data, we're scratching and clawing to find the benchmarks of performance across all of the categories that you're describing.
Right.
And so it's so awesome if you're into growing a strong, viable, scalable, growing, profitable business. The fact that Paul and Steve and now you have collected this database and you have the ability to enable people to look at their business apples to apples. I've heard Paul and Steve riff on this, so maybe you could riff on this. The idea that when you look at chart of accounts for integrators, the way owners account for their own income, it's like a smorgasbord in terms of I collect no salary, I collect a huge salary. And maybe is there a thread there to pull on and just maybe an observation of what you see when you're trying to maybe look at someone's P&L or books and understand how do they compare to their peers around the country?
Yeah. I mean, look, I want to start by saying that we have yet to meet, well, actually we probably have 1 or 2 integrators that we've met who have an accounting background. But it's incredibly rare, right? It's also incredibly rare that we found an integrator who realizes like, hey, that's a function of the business that I want to outsource. Many of them try to go about it themselves, or their wife, or significant other has some experience with it, or, eventually they grow to a size where they're able to bring on that talent. But so I want to just preface it by saying there's no judgment at all. I get why we have such ugly books out there in our industry, right? I had them for a long time. I mean, it's just the way of the beast. But I mean, it's all over the board. We we've seen, P&Ls and balance sheets that cannot be read by even, sort of the most experienced person, just because it's the last thing to get dealt with when you've got customer phone calls and vendors that need to get paid and all this. I mean, many people are managing their business off their bank account. If there's money in there, we're happy. If there's not, or if it's getting below a certain amount, then, I don't know, we got to pull red flags or, hit some buzzers or whatever. Right. So, I think to maybe answer your question about the owner compensation piece, like almost everything, we do have a benchmark for that. And it's really based on the size of the organization. Because of course, as you grow revenue, the percentage of that revenue that the owner should be taking in is smaller and smaller, right? That doesn't mean the dollar amount is smaller, but the percentage of the overall revenue is smaller. But what we recommend from an owner's compensation perspective is to look at your ownership role as separate from the role that you play in the organization. So an owner's role is essentially an investor in their company, right? So, for example, Ron, if you came to me and say, hey, we want to take One Firefly to the next level, we need some money, I would become, and you ask me for some money, I become an investor in One Firefly. My role is as an investor, right? And that's how our dealers, we recommend our dealers look at their ownership role, separate from the role they play in their daily operation of the business. So we recommend them pay themselves a salary that's consistent with the replacement cost of their role in the business. So if you're a 4 or 5 person integrator, your role in the business is very different than if you have 40 people, right? And so as the general manager of a 4 to 5 person integration company, you're wearing a lot of hats. What's the replacement cost of that person, right? What's the replacement cost of a CEO of a 40 person integration firm? So we recommend that the salary be consistent with what you'd have to pay somebody else to do that job, right? And then if the owner seeks additional compensation, that's provided as distributions, in their company. And of course, there's a lot of, discussions around how a company is formed, whether it's an S Corp and LLC. But that's essentially, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
I think you hit it on the head, is that you guys provide the standardization or creating the mechanism to allow for a standard to be implemented within the numbers of the business, which now, without that, you couldn't tell an owner or leadership team what levers to pull, because you don't know what's working in their business and what isn't working in their business.
Right.
It's a fundamental requirement. And so I'm gonna pivot to this standardization. And if you go, this is show 176, Matt. Mm-hmm. My guest number 1 was Paul Starkey.
Oh,
I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
So, and I want to say he was my guest number 10. So of my first shows, Paul was my first 10 shows. Paul was 20% of the guest, and so that was back in 17. But I had personally been working with Paul and Steve since around 15, and the Vital mechanism, maybe you could describe it, but how did Vital's ability to put integrators on a common platform of financials and processes really position them for what became the acquisition within Bravis? So the largest, or one of the largest integrators in the world now, was possible because of this foundational work done by your team.
Right. And I can only speak to what I've experienced. At that time, I was a client of the Vital process, and so I can sort of speak to some of it. But essentially, what allowed the Bravis thing to happen was that all of these dealers were on the same standardized way of counting money, recognizing revenue, recognizing costs, reporting structure, dashboard structure. What we might call the business operating system looked very similar from one dealer to the next, and that allowed I believe the owners, or excuse me, the private equity firm to rely on those figures, because they were being counted in a way that made sense. They had a standardized chart of accounts, a standardized accounting operating system, standardized QuickBooks. They were almost all of them, I think, were on the same software platforms. So a lot of that was really what allowed Bravus to happen, and also allows us to compare just from dealer to dealer, across the country in different markets. There are some very consistent best practices that we see regardless of where your business is located.
I know this might seem obvious, but I'd love for you to differentiate today, because I know there's been some questions, and you had mentioned you've had questions posed to you. Bravus, the integration company, and Vital Management are completely separate entities that are not attached. They might be aligned in certain ways, but they're not attached or affiliated in any way. Do you want to maybe expound on that and just kind of describe the Vital Management company that you're growing with Paul and Steve, and where that is in terms of, comparison to Bravus, the integrator?
Right. So, Bravus was the result of Paul and Steve working together with a group of dealers to get on a standardized platform that allowed Bravus to happen. Paul and Steve are also involved in, helping dealers to be positioned to become part of Bravus. So they are still involved in that part of the process. Beyond that, you'd obviously have to talk with Paul and Steve. I've been brought on to grow the coaching side of the business, to not just sort of brought on, let me sort of reposition that. What I've helped so far with Vital is to get clear about what we want to be as a company. And when we sat down, we looked at the entire industry, the 12 to 15,000 CEDIA dealers just in the United States. And we realized that the bulk of these dealers are owner-centric. The bottlenecks in those companies are serving to just create a ton of chaos, frustrate the owners, and put them in a position where they're not achieving the kind of financial success or life happiness that they had hoped this entrepreneurial journey would bring them. And the result of that 12 to 15,000 CEDIA dealers are the center of the industry, right? And so the industry itself is not realizing its full growth and value potential. It's not attracting enough outside investment. And most importantly, and we're all feeling this, it's not attracting enough outside talent. And so the industry has a massive growth opportunity if we can get the majority of these dealers on a business operating system and a platform and level up their business acumen, their leadership skills, and their performance. And that's essentially what our mission is. Our mission is industry-wide. And we believe that we can accomplish that mission through leveling up the dealers and transforming how they think and act. And that's the Vital that we are growing today.
What do you think the limitation is right now? Why is the rate of adoption of these better practices not at a higher rate of adoption?
Great question. So Steve and Paul have been so entrenched in delivering this great product and service to the dealers that have signed on that they have not been able to focus on outreach and growing the Vital brand and visibility. And so that was my goal here to take that mission to the streets, to the 15,000 CEDIA dealers, and let them know that this is available, right? That there's help if you're feeling chaos in your business, if you're feeling like you're not on the entrepreneurial journey that you thought you signed up for, we're here to help. And my goal is to spread the word. We want to get wide and deep with the entire industry and take this thing to the next level and help as many people as we can.
So the I'm going to make a statement about my personal experience working with owner operators and leadership. And I'm going to make it very time-based. And that is, right now, our industry is busy. I'm going to say at peak levels of busyness from my 20-year experience in this space. I think the pandemic has caused some weird anomalies to happen in terms of lifestyle choices, money choices, and it's resulted in a lot of money being spent in the home. And our integrators are the beneficiaries of that workflow. And at the same time, I know that many of them run themselves so hard and so ragged that their quality of life is in many cases very poor. It almost sounds like a challenging puzzle for you and your team to break through and solve that puzzle, to get them to pay attention to ideas that could ultimately help them. Maybe not in the immediate short term, or maybe you could counter that and say they would be in the immediate, but certainly in the middle to long term. What are do those observations seem on point? And if so, how do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're dead on, right? And you know, there's a quote that I always like to bring up, especially when somebody's experiencing prosperous times and sort of not focusing on the growth or foundation, right? So I would agree, we're in prosperous times, and busy doesn't always mean prosperous, but you know, in a service industry, busy means you probably have a lot of cash coming into your business, which can make it feel prosperous.
And your bank account has more money in the bank. You may not be profitable, and you might not even know if you're profitable, right? But there's certainly more money sitting in the bank.
Right. And that feels great to a lot of people. And the quote that I kind of go back to with that is that smooth seas never made a great sailor, right? And what that means to me in the way that I sort of coach my dealers and private clients through is, when things are great, are you truly building a great business, right? And so we have to be careful to separate sort of our feeling of prosperity from what our measurements are telling us are happening, right? And so, I mean, much like that traffic control company that I helped, they were growing top line like crazy, but just not profitable, right? And so when we helped them turn that around, it's like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. What we were doing, we were seeing all this cash coming into the business, thinking we were doing everything right. And so, you know, I think my bit of feedback on kind of what you were mentioning about what we're trying to do for dealers. We sell broccoli and Brussels sprouts. In fact, we sell like raw broccoli and Brussels sprouts, right?
I don't think my son would be a customer.
No, they're not sautéed in olive oil with garlic. You know, there's no salt and pepper on them. They're just like, we picked them off the bush, and we're like, hey, here, come and eat this, right? And so that is our biggest challenge is getting people to nibble on the broccoli, and then we're like, hey, you know what? Let's try cooking it a little bit, and then all of a sudden, people are eating broccoli, and it's like, hey, this is good. So the challenge is mindset. And I think that's one thing that I'm helping to bring to the VITAL process is a lot of what we experience, either success or failure or somewhere in between, has to do with mindset. And I know you're a big proponent of that, right? So that's something that I think has been one of the biggest factors that we've brought to the table now is we first have to shift a little bit about how these dealers think about their business and why they're even in business and what they want to accomplish, right? Because as an owner, if you start to think about your ownership as an investment versus a job, things look a little different. If you start to think about filling your own cup and making sure you have enough left over for everything else, that changes things, right? So, I mean, you talk about lifestyle, and this is probably going to be a separate conversation for us someday. I think the entrepreneurial health of our industry and many other industries is terrible, right? If we
have that in agreement, and yeah, that would be a fun line of conversation to go down.
Yeah. And so but the reality is that many people just don't feel like they have the time. I don't have the time to exercise. I don't have the time to eat right. I mean, I remember when I was a dealer, early on, I ate more fast food than I ever did in my entire life, right? It was breakfast on the way out the door. It was lunch. It was, things like that. So, I mean, I know I'm off on a tangent there, but
I just will add to that. I think and I'll just share it from my personal experience. And that is, and I can look at my 14-year entrepreneurial journey. And for many of those 14 years, I was busy being busy, having a job within my business. And I didn't hold myself or my business to a higher level of, in fact, measuring profitability and or other KPIs that were performance indicators of the business. Yeah. And that when I did that, there was a maturity that had to happen in both me personally and professionally. And when I learned that that was important, and then I learned the benefits of doing that and work, it takes a lot of work because it often means a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do it, the fruits of that effort, and I'm still on that journey, by the way. I don't know that it's a sprint. It's a long marathon of improvement, and maybe an ultra marathon of improvement.
Yep.
But it's a lot of fun because again, just speaking from my own experience, my metrics for performance are around the performance of the company. Not just is Ron, the salesperson at One Firefly, going to make sales and make commissions. That's very short-sighted.
Yep.
And I didn't know that for a long time. I had to learn that.
Yeah.
But now I can tell you on the other side of it, there's the metaphor of climbing up the mountain and all you see is the top of that mountain and the top of that mountain. And then one day you reach the top and you look forward and then you see the valley and you actually see that next mountain. You go, oh, I'm ready to go climb that mountain now.
Yep.
And it's when your outlook changes, your whole game changes. All your decisions can change. Yep. And it sounds like that's what's driving you. And you're out there, you and Paul and Steve are doing that, for the industry that I love. And that's why I wanted you to come on the show and talk about that passion, because there are so many people that need help. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. What does the future hold, Matt? What is the next, we're coming out of COVID. What does the future for Vital look like here in the coming, I'll say year or two? I'm not going to ask you to pull your crystal ball and look too far out into the future.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully we're at a place where we can look out in the future, right? I mean, in the middle of this pandemic, I think all of us felt like we had no idea what the heck we were doing. But for Vital, I mean, there's such fantastic stuff that we're going to be bringing to the table. We have a lot to bring to the industry at CEDIA. So we're going to have a number of significant announcements at CEDIA that really relate to delivering as much value as we can and growing our footprint and reach. Because again, we think those two things are the opportunity. We want to deliver the best value to our dealers, and then also make sure that as many people know about us as possible. Because there's the worst thing is to have a fantastic solution that just nobody knows about, right? And so those are really our two focuses: is add more value, delivering more products and services that are being asked for, and then making sure that we're partnering with as many people in the industry as possible to get the word out.
Can we spend a few minutes, Matt, on that partnership, and let's call it the engagement? People are listening. They go, yeah, I'm working a lot of hours. Yeah, I don't know how much money I'm making. Yeah, I have all these stressors in my life and my business. But yeah, I'm not sure how much time I can carve out. It's maybe the case of they're so busy being busy, they don't know how to take that next step. What does it look like? What does the process of engagement look like? Or even vetting? Like, how do you interact enough to know whether there's a there?
Yeah, great question. So anytime so let me step back. It all starts with a conversation. So, outreach to Vital Management, and you can, reach out to us a number of ways. I think we'll go over that later. But you just reach out and say, hey, I have a need, And I think that alone is a big step for people to identify that they need some help, right? And that doesn't mean you're broken, or that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you or your business, right? And I want to make sure that people are clear on that. The most sort of mature or best thing you can do for yourself and your business is to realize that you've only got one set of eyes. And if you're looking at the entire world and your business through your perspective, then you're missing out on a lot. And so asking for help doesn't mean that there's some issue or problem, or that you have done something wrong. It just means that you might be missing other perspectives because you've only looked through your eyes. So it starts with that one engagement, and it starts with a phone call, and that's either with Paul, Steve, or myself. And we talk about your business. And that's usually 30 minutes, we get to know you. And at that point, we'll talk you through what we call the opportunity analysis. And what the opportunity analysis is it's a one-time engagement where we take your financials in any shape or form that you have them, and we have a process where we can put them into our system and benchmark them very closely to how we benchmark all of our other dealers. And then that is another phone call, about an hour-long phone call, reviewing those results. So we take your data as a dealer, put it into our system, which immediately gives us some result on how it compares to our benchmarks. And then we can show you, hey, this is where you're doing well. This is where you have an opportunity. Might give you a few tips. And then at that point, we say, hey, here's our other ongoing offerings. And it starts out as sort of a DIY solution where you can consume all of the content we've created, and more of that is being created every day. You can try to implement these systems on your own, which some people have been successful with. You have the dashboard product that shows you your results. And then we actually have a couple of new offerings. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, that we're releasing around CEDIA time, that are more engagement around group, community, and one-on-one, that really deliver beyond the DIY process. So the opportunity analysis is the first step, and then we go on from there. And that's an investment of it's I think right now $400, so it's pretty inexpensive to go through that opportunity analysis to really see how you stack up from a financial perspective. And I want to make sure that people understand we're not just about the financial, right? But what we've identified is the financial performance of your business is the best indicator we have about what's happening inside of your business, right? And it's like the dashboard on a car. If every car you got into, if Acura decided to measure something different from Lexus, and their dashboard was using a completely different metric, how would you know how fast you're going, right? How would you know how much fuel is in the tank if they, instead of using empty and full, they were using some random measurements, right? So for us, we need to get everybody on the same page. And so now we can tell you what's happening in your business and suggest ways to fix it.
And you might have already answered this, but I'm gonna speak to you only from my experience. I know that you had the product BI for CI, the intelligence tool, the dashboard. And what is that? And I apologize if I'm asking you to restate it and you've already said it a different way. But BI for CI, I know from the past that dealers could sign up just for that, and their P&L and their numbers could auto plug into that. And it could, in maybe a DIY fashion, give them those KPIs or those performance indicators on their business. And it allowed them maybe on their own to try to address or solve them before they, engage your help or others to further help them make that change.
Right. So the BI for CI dashboard product is a visual representation of the QuickBooks financials, right? Okay. So it allows a dealer to look at a dashboard, much like the dashboard in your car, and easily ascertain where they are in these areas. And you're right. The DIY solution that we have out there right now is the dashboard product with supporting documentation and some onboarding support as well. Okay. So that allows a dealer to essentially take what they're doing from a financial perspective, show it on their dashboards, and then engage with us. we are releasing some new functionality in the dashboard product. We're also releasing some coaching and interaction around that DIY solution to further deepen the impact that a dealer can get from that membership into the dashboard process.
Got it. And maybe that's some of the things coming at CEDIA or in the fall.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
trying to get him to break news, folks. I'm trying to make it happen. He's not cracking.
It's coming. All I can tell you is, like, I mean, just we have been working so hard at this to add more value, and that's kind of the goal. Is like we already have a ton of happy dealers. We want to add more and more value so that it deepens the impact, right? So that our dealers are just all over the place, thousands of them making huge inroads in their businesses.
Love it. I want to give a few more shout outs to the folks that had stopped in and said hello. Mary Ellen, I've been watching on social media. Mary Ellen's recently made a career move. Congratulations.
Yeah. Congrats.
Very excited for her, and I want to hear all about it. And then Tomas is joining us from Panama. So Tomas, thanks for stopping in and listening in.
Hey, Tomas.
Always a pleasure to have you. Matt, for those that are, they clearly, you've piqued their interest or their curiosities and they want to learn more. What are the places you want to send them?
So we want to send you to biforci.com. And we're actually in the process of developing a new website for Vital. So we'll be releasing that shortly. The process for communicating and connecting with us is socials and a direct outreach. So the best way to follow me is at MJ Bernath at any of the socials and connect with us there. We are currently in the process of rebranding and getting our Vital Management social media back up and running. So you're going to see by CEDIA time an entire new brand effort. So for the moment, the best way to reach us is through me directly or Paul and Steve. Those of you who know Paul and Steve obviously have their communication information. You can reach me at matt@mjbernath.com. That's matt@mjbernath.com. And of course, at MJ Bernath through any of the socials. So happy to chat with you and help in any way that I can.
Well, Matt, congratulations on your career success and your most recent successes with Vital. I know you and the team are helping so many people in our industry, and yet there are still so many to help. And I'm proud of what you guys are doing, and we're certainly rooting you on here at One Firefly. And anything we can do to help you, don't be shy. But awesome. Thank you for joining me here on show 176 of Automation Unplugged.
Thank you, Ron. It's been awesome. I really appreciate it. And thanks for flying out your hair and makeup gals. They did an amazing job.
I did. You know what? I'm glad you appreciated that. They said they had to do a lot of touch-ups on you, but they made it work.
Yeah, it happens. I'm always a challenge.
That's right. Thanks so much, Matt.
Thanks, Ron. See ya.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Matt Bernath. Vital Management has already accomplished so much in our industry, and they are continuing to really gear up. I'm going to say this injection of additional energy in Matt. I'm excited to see what they come up with and come out with here at CEDIA and in the fall. And if you're out there and any of those talking points really spoke to you, do yourself a favor and reach out just to learn more, if nothing else. I can tell you I know so many business owners that are so busy being busy. I mean, I know so many, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And they don't always know how to do anything different. They know that there might be a difference out there. There might be a better way to do it, but they don't know what that is. And they're so busy with all the jobs that are overflowing right now. It's not obvious sometimes to know what the next move is to make the business run a little bit better. So there are multiple solutions and places out there within the industry and without the industry. But some of the best choices I've made in my business has been going and asking for help. And, you never need to be afraid of that. You know, in fact, I would challenge that makes you a much better person and certainly a business owner, because you can't know everything. It's not fair to expect yourself to know everything. You know, there's a concept of inject the expert. You know, there's a book, Who Not How. I've actually read that recently as well. You know, find the who that's going to help you take your business to the next level. And coaches, mentors, could be other business owners. But reach out and ask, because what's the worst thing that could happen is they say no. But the thing of what could happen if it actually goes the right way, which is more probably going to happen, which is you're going to find ways to make your business better, which makes your quality of life better, which makes the quality of life of your team better. And then look at all the people that you and your team are influencing, your family, your friends, your customers. So it's really a compound effect on society. So it's, I definitely recommend you reach out. I love what the guys at Vital are doing. Proud of them. And it was a pleasure to have Matt on the show. In case you have not already done so, please follow One Firefly on Instagram. We continue to be very active, and I even will go on occasion on stories and drop some nuggets. So definitely follow us there. And then this show, yes, we are streaming live in Facebook and LinkedIn, but the show is also available audio only. So just go to your favorite environment, whether that's Apple or Spotify, and subscribe. And if you're willing to leave us a comment or a review, good or bad, it actually is all good because it helps the algorithm. So it will be greatly appreciated if you do that. And that is that. And on that note, gang, I'm excited because this is coming up on the July 4th weekend. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of time with my family. So I'm going to take some time on Friday, and I'm going to wrap it into the beginning of next week. And I'm going to take a little bit of a breather and get a little bit of rest and relaxation in and enjoy my family. And I know they and I are really looking forward to that. So I recommend you, of course, do the same. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that. And I look forward to seeing you next week for the next episode. We've got a stacked schedule of guests for the summer, and definitely continue to stay tuned. Appreciate it. And I see the comments here. Thanks, Roberta. Thanks, Tomas. And thanks for everyone out there tuning in. I will see you all next time. Ciao.